So that's you know, how he felt about it. And then from then on, Roger and I worked on the wall, he on the music and the lyrics and me on the images. And I had in my house in Chelsea a whole wall that was devoted to the wall. And I would make little drawings, you know, that were about this kind of size, normal foolscap paper type. And I would pin them onto the wall, and therefore they, you know, they could be moved around. They were kind of taped onto the wall, and you could move one to, so you could create a sequence by moving them around. And I'm quite a quick artist, so I could draw things very, very quickly and sketch them in, and which I did. And so that's how the thing evolved and came together. And eventually he very cleverly said, I'm going to make this a record, an album, and I'm going to make it a show, and I'm going to make it a movie, all of which he achieved. He made all of those things happen with the wall. And it was a difficult experience in some ways, because Alan Parker, the British director, came in, and he immediately wanted to take control of it. And Roger and I had been working on it for 18 months or something like that. And we weren't about to have it snatched out of our hands. But being the director, naturally, he wanted control. I understand his point of view.
Yeah.
So it was a bit kind of fraught. And I remember people saying at the time, you know, you put three megalomaniacs in a room together, what do you expect? It's bound to be fraught, you know. So, and I remember going to Pinewood Studios in London here, outside London. I'm not a heavy drinker, but every morning I would go in at like 8:30 in the morning, and I had a bottle of Jack Daniels on the passenger seat next to me. And before I went in, I had to take a slug, because I knew what was coming up. It was going to be heavy stuff, you know. But eventually, you know, when we finally, of course, when we got the whole thing together and we became friends again, and the animosities that you have in work, sometimes when you look back on them in later life, you think, oh, that's stupid, you know, why would we be so upset about that? So we became sort of friends at the end, all of us. I mean, it was just really, I think Roger and Alan were you know, they both were. I was kind of in the middle as the artist. I didn't have the power of either of those two, but I was trapped in the middle. But I was always seen as Roger's man, and that was part of the difficulty. I always did side with Roger naturally, because he's the one I worked with to produce this thing. And at the time, we didn't have any kind of feeling as to what it would be, what kind of movie it would be. And since then, I mean, I'm as shocked as anybody, or surprised as anybody, to see that it has become an iconic classic. And I myself get emails weekly from Pink Floyd fans, or people who were growing up at that time, who, you know, want to make contact or say something about it and so forth. I had a guy, he sent me an email saying, this is about 3 or 4 years ago, would I mind if he had my images tattooed onto his arm and chest? And I said, no, I don't mind. You know, you screw your body up if you want to. It's not, you know, that's your choice. No, I wouldn't do it. I said, but you know, he wanted to. Anyway, he did it, and he sent me a VHS of this tattoo being done on his arm. And the tattooist was there working away, mopping the blood away, which was running down his arm. And this guy addressed me. He was an American. He said, Mr. Scarfe, I want to thank you for what you've done for me. You got me through the Vietnam War. The Gulf War. You got me through the Gulf War. And I said, how could that be? You know, how can that? My God, yeah, you did. And I want to thank you, and I'm going to send you my Gulf War medal, which he did. He sent me his Gulf War medal. Of course, I immediately sent it back. I said, you're the hero, not me. I'm just an artist. And so That's how strongly people feel about the music and the images. And I guess we all have, things in our times in our life where a certain piece of music seems apt. It's when you meet your first girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever. And, it's whoever is David Bowie, whoever happens to be around at that time. It becomes an iconic moment for you personally. And I think that, a lot of people find that with the wall. I've had so many people, and as Jim said, they buy a lot of my work through him and through my website and so forth. So it's it's a thing which is keeps sustaining itself. It's quite extraordinary. I don't know anything like it. For instance, he wanted something that represented the power of fascism, so we say, the power of, and I thought, what is the most unwielding, unforgiving kind of implement I could think of? And I came up with a hammer. And the hammer, then I made the hammers march in a kind of Gestapo type way. So it had that overpowering horror. And then Roger then wrote hammer, hammer, hammer into the lyrics. I mean, it's a small example of the way it's a two-way traffic. But in general, of course, the whole thing is him and it's his story. Although it's his, but then having said that, although it's his story, it's seen through my eyes, and therefore it's my story as well. And when he tells me that he had a rough time at school, I hardly went to school, as I told you, but when I was there, of course, a lot of the teachers were bullying and they were frightening and so forth. So, I think it worked two ways, but it wasn't until I've given a lot of interviews over the wall that I've come to realize myself that the images are mine. They're my imaginations of his mind. He never ever told me this should look like this or look like that. He's very, very good, Roger, at understanding that when you hire an artist to do something, you're hiring that artist for what he does, not for what we want to try and bend him into. So I never really ever had any interference, only I had encouragement. So it was a very happy kind of relationship. Although Roger has a name for being very direct, I don't remember we had any arguments about it at all. It was a very kind of happy, unusually happy relationship in that way. They did call us the odd couple because we kind of didn't. I came from one world, he came from another. He was a rock star and I wasn't. And but although Roger later told me I was a rock star because he took me into the auditorium one day when one of the sequences was playing, and I saw that the audience rose to their feet and cheered when my work came on, which is an astounding experience for an artist. An artist usually is a solitary person who works alone in the solitary, gallery of their studio, and to get that kind of roar of applause from 30,000 people, or whatever it happens to be, is something else, I can tell you.